What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video and back with another Demise format video. This might be my last video in my regular coverage of Demise format because I feel like I've sort of gone through all the decks that I wanted to cover. However, there was one deck that I did cover that I feel like I didn't really do justice to. You know, I built my own build of it, and that build was not really the best, and a lot of the commenters had some very helpful ideas on how to change that build, and I've sort of taken some of their advice and come up with what you see before you, because this is 6 Samurais. Now, the major points of advice that people said were play Reasoning, and also to make the deck a bit more controlling. So we have Reasoning in here, along with Triple Shien to pair with that. We got some Phoenix Twin Wind Blast, and we got some Solemn Judgments as well. So this should make the deck a bit more controlling. Another piece of advice that was very, very helpful is to sort of look at John Moore's winning 6 Samurai list from YCS Houston, or actually I think it was SJC Houston at that time, in 2008, which is in Phantom format, which will be a little bit later down the line on the channel. But it is a format that's relatively similar to Demise, and I looked at the deck, and I felt like a lot of it was pretty adaptable to this format. So I took the framework here from John Moore's winning list in the SJC Houston 2008, and luckily that list was also, you know, sort of following those lines of having Reasonings and Solemn Judgments and things like that. So big shouts to John Moore for actually having this awesome list. I did make some slight changes because there were some cards that were not legal in this format that were legal in Phantom format. Things like Spirit of the Six Samurai, Six Samurai United, those were not out in this format. But I do think the core of the deck and the idea of the deck is still very good. I mean, the Six Samurai do have somewhat of a problem in that, like, if you're just trying to bring them out, unless you have Grandmaster, you can't really bring out multiple at the same time, unless you can't get off their effects. Reasoning solves that, because Reasoning can get you a body on board, and these 6 Samurais are a bit varied in levels. You know, you've got things like Zanji and Iroh, which are level 4, and to be fair, those are generally the ones that you want to go into. Those are your beat sticks. Those are also just generally pretty good. And you've also got Yaichi, which is at level 3, and you've even got Kaman, which is level 3 as well. Kaman doesn't come up as much, but it can have its purposes here and there, and 1500 attack is nothing to scoff at. And just being a different level is very nice. In addition, you've got the Grandmaster 6 Samurai, which generally you bring out from hand. Once you get 1 6 Samurai on board, you get to bring this out, and then activate their effects and stuff. But you can just hit this off Reasoning, and that's a pretty good hit. You can also hit Great Shogun Chien, which is sort of the boss monster of this deck. It's a level 7 monster, and it prevents your opponent from activating more than 1 Spell Trap per turn, which can be very, very powerful, especially if you're playing things like Solemn to negate those cards. So, you know, this is a very, very good combination of cards, and, you know, your opponent might just call 7 off Reasoning to try and stop the Chien from hitting the field, because it's very annoying to deal with once it hits the field. It also has a replacement effect to destroy other 6 Samurais instead of it. So, you know, it's very, very annoying if you've got this set up on a field of 6 Sams. We also got 2 Siders here to get a bit more aggressive. It's another level 5, so if they call 5 and hit Sidra, that's a bit unfortunate. But I think that this deck kind of does need to get aggressive. Like, this is an aggro deck, you know, it's playing these 6 Sams mainly to just beat down the opponent and also get the advantage from things like Grandmaster activating and stopping their big stuff from stopping our aggressive pushes with Chien and Solomon and stuff like that. So I think Sidra does belong in this deck. For the other cards, we got 1 Brain Con. This is sort of like a relic of the John Moore deck. And, you know, in Phantom format, Brain Con's limited to 1 copy. Here it's unlimited, so you could play more than this. I didn't really feel like it was necessary to play more than this. Like, I filled up the deck with a lot of other good stuff instead. I think you could honestly replace this with a 3rd Phoenix Twin Wind Blast, because we're only playing 2 here, if you really wanted to sort of make the deck a bit more optimized. But I do like Brain Con just for the OTK potential. Also, in addition, you can use it to tribute for Grandmaster. You can use it to tribute for Chien. So there are some other applications to Brain Con. So maybe instead of playing another Phoenix Wing, you could also play more Brain Cons. It just depends on the direction you want to take the deck. We've got a Trunade, a Heavy, and an MST to deal with back row. The Trunade actually has a very interesting application that you can do with it if you really want to. So, you know that you can Trunade back Premature Burial and keep the monster on field, no problem. But something you can actually do with Trunade and Call the Haunted in this deck is if you Trunade Call the Haunted, the Call the Haunted would destroy one of your 6 Sams, but if you've got a 6 Sam with a replacement effect equipped to that the Haunted, then you can actually pop a different 6 Sam that you have instead. So that's kind of neat there, and it's an interesting synergy that doesn't often come up, but if it does come up, it's kind of neat that this deck can actually take advantage of it. We've got a pre-mat in the call, as I mentioned, to bring back our stuff. If you miss off reasoning, these can be great insurance policies for you. We get double rotor to search out our 6 Sims. We've got a Swords of Revealing Light to stall out the game a little bit, and also to pair with the Tornade. We got a Call of the Haunted, as I mentioned. We got the Mirror Force to deal with our opponent's attacks. We've got Phoenix Wing Moonblast ×2. This deck in the best deck to take advantage of Phoenix Wing, because it didn't really have like the best pitches from hand. But if you're just using this to sort of draw lock your opponent for a turn, and also set up your big aggro pushes, it generally is pretty fine. We've got triple return, and honestly, I mean, this is a way that you can set up return, is if you pitch a 6-am with the Phoenix Wing, and then you go return to bring that back and be pretty nice. I really like return. I think it just gives the deck a lot of aggro potential and a lot of flexibility. So I like it here. You could definitely switch this out for something a little bit more powerful. This wasn't in the original John Moore list, but I do really like this card in the deck, and hopefully you'll see the power of it in some of the replays. We got a Ring Destruction to pop our stuff for our opponents and deal the last bit of burn damage. We've got triple Solemn Judgment to stop what they're doing, and we got a TT to blow up the board. For the side deck, this is where I sort of did the most changes to the John Moore list, mainly because, you know, Demise format's a very different format from Phantom format. So I've got a couple different options here. Firstly, triple tap Dust Shoot, in case we're up against a deck that does sort of suffer against this. Things like Monarchs, for instance. Gadgets can also be good to bring in the Dust Shoot against. And if you're bringing Dust Shoot, you can also bring in Mind Crush as well to rip more cards out of their hand once you know what the contents of that hand are. Mind Crush can also be good against a variety of decks, things like, you know, decks playing the Hero engine. You can hit things that they search out with that. And same with like Demise OTK, you know, you can hit the things that Manju or Senju search. We've got double command here for up against like more floodgate focused decks that can be good against that. We've got triple pulling the rug for Monarch decks. We got triple Royal Decree for trap focused decks. And then we've got triple Transmigration Prophecy. I'm trying this out instead of DD Crow because in a deck with reasoning, you don't want a reasoning hidden to a Crow. That's really bad. So this sort of takes the spot of DD Crow in the side deck here. And it's a pretty good card. You know, it has a lot of different applications. You can even shuffle back your own cards in the deck if you so wish. Fusion deck we're never going into. I just filled it up with Neos fusions because I thought that would be funny. But yeah, you're never really going into this, so it doesn't really matter here. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Let's dive into some games and see how this deck actually performs. Now, I've received general feedback that people like when I show off the games against the meta decks first on the channel and then show off the games against more jank strategies. So that's the way I'm going to order it in this video. Let me know if you like that order or if you like the reverse, where I show off the jank decks first and then I show off a game against the meta. Either way here, we're going to start off against a meta deck played by Jim Bobby, if you can guess on the channel. And this is a pretty good hand overall. We could just go for a reason play here, set up like Xian and all that stuff. We have a Sidra in hand, so I don't necessarily want to do that right now. We also have a Mirror Force to protect ourselves in case they do an aggro push. So I'm fine just leaving it at this. Our opponent's going to just activate a D-drop, hitch a Mally. That is a very, very good start for them. Draw 2. And then they're just going to set 2, pass. Okay, we are fine with that. That's perfectly fine on our end. We can sort of go ham here. Yes, it does shut off our Cyber Dragon, but if they're leaving open board, we are going to try and take advantage of that. So we go for the reason here. They call 4, and they hit a Sidra. Okay, we just get out another Sidra. That's kind of neat. We're just going to bring out a Zanji here, and unfortunately they have Phoenix Wing to send back the Zanji. They're playing around if we have Grandmaster here. But they pitch a Mally, which to me means that they might have actually drawn into their other Mally as well. So that's pretty good for us if they got a third Mally in hand. I mean, we're feeling good about that. We just attack in with the Sidra here, and we'll just pass back to them. They're going to banish a Mally, so unfortunately they did not have the third Mally in hand. That's kind of rough. But they're just going to bring out that Mally in defense, set 1, pass back to us. We draw another Zanji. Might as well just commit it and attack in. They've got Crush Card, though, and Crush Card is one of the flaws of this deck. You know, we are playing a lot of big guys, and Crush Card can clear them all for the most part. The deck does have ways to get around Crush Card, which you will see later in this game. But this is a brutal hit here, hitting so much and then leaving us with just a Swords of Revealing Light. We're just going to keep the sword in hand, no need to commit it now. We do have some discard traps, and it would be good to keep it around in hand in case we draw into one of those. But we draw into Grandmaster, and Grandmaster is the main way that this deck gets around Crush Card, because Grandmaster, when it's destroyed in the owner's possession, not on field. So it does mean that if you draw it off Crush Card and Crush Card destroys it, then you will be able to use Grandmaster's effect to get something back. Now we have a couple options here. We could just go for an Iroh or a Zanji and just press the offensive while our opponent doesn't have anything. But what I actually choose to do is just grab back the Grandmaster. The reason I do this is that we're very, very low on resources, and so Grandmaster here represents a way to keep gaining back resources, right? And if we draw into a Rhoda or an Iroh, then we are good to set up this Grandmaster under Crush Card. So I feel perfectly fine with just grabbing a Grandmaster. There's not really a sense of urgency right now. I've got Mirror Force set. I've got Swords in hand in case I do need to slow the game down a bit. So we can just pass back to our opponent and see what they do. They're going to go for Call on the Mally. You never really want to do that, which means that they're in somewhat desperate straits. They're going to go for a meta here, which is really rough. If they go for Sentry, they can stop our Mirror Force here. Now, if we do draw into a 6-am, we can then bring out Grandmaster, hit over the Sentry. But still, for the short term, it can be a bit rough for us. But our opponent's likely also thinking of the fact that if they go into Sentry, we can just hit over it with Grandmaster, so they go in for a Dark Play the Dragon Knight instead. The deck's actually very good against our deck because they can banish our 6-am, shut off our returns, things like that. So that could be a bit awkward for us, but we do have Mirror Force to deal with that. So we just are going to fire that and deal with it like that, especially because we don't really have a way to deal with that outside of the Mirror Force. So we're just going to do that and see what they do. They're just going to pass back to us, and we draw into a Phoenix Wing Windblast, which is a pretty good option here. We can set that, pass back to our opponent. We're keeping the swords in hand in case we do need to discard the swords instead of the Grandmaster. There are cases in which that would happen, especially because Grandmaster, again, if we draw into a 6-am, Grandmaster's online, and that's really, really good for us. And lo and behold, we draw into a 6-am. Right after Crush Card ended, so always nice when that happens. We're going to summon an Iroh. That's going to be fine by them, so we bring out this Grandmaster, and now we can attack in for 3,800, or at least attempt to. It looks like that will indeed all go through, so we feel very, very good about this. If they clear the Grandmaster with a card effect, then we get it back, or we get it back another 6-am. It's just, we have so many options here, and we do have this Phoenix Wing to spin back anything super problematic for us. So they are going to go for pre-mat here, paying 8 and bring back a Mally. I mean, it's just rough. They've not been able to get things in grave this game. And they are going to just tribute that for Zaborg. Now, we actually did think here about potentially Phoenix Winging back the Mally here once it was summoned, because a Mally draw is really bad for them. But I feel like it's better to wait for their normal summon. Yes, they probably have a Monarch here, which they do indeed have the Zaborg to pop something. But we can just spin back the Zaborg and wind up in a similar spot because all the Mallies, are out of the deck, so they can't bring out a Mally that way. So they need to have some other option here. So I figured this is probably better because it does cost them their normal summon as well. They're going to pop the Iroh. We could have potentially used the Iroh to pop the Grandmaster instead, but there's no real reason to, because 6-am Iroh doesn't really do much on field, whereas Grandmaster actually does a lot in case they've got some other form of removal or something. We can actually get something back with Grandmaster. So they're going to go for the Zaborg there, and we're going to spin the Zaborg back to the top, and that's just going to be the end of the game. So, kind of surprising that we managed to win through that major Crush Card, but, 6-ams can survive under that. And if our opponent had mounted aggressive pressure, we had the Mirror Force there. We got swords in hand to sort of stall out a bit longer. So it was looking pretty good for us. We bring in Pulling the Rugs. I think going second maybe it wasn't the right choice to bring in Pulling the Rugs. But, they're on Stratos, they're on Zaborg, they're on Monarchs of some sort. So I do think that pulling is a pretty good option here. But going second is a bit awkward because, they can just set up a Stratos and get around your pulling that way. So they're going to search out a Mally, go for D-Draw, pitching the Mally, drawing 2, and then going for a Coffee. So now they also get to know our entire hand here. That is very rough. They're going to take a TT there, which I think makes sense. Nothing else in our hand really does much against them right now, and they're going to set 3, pass back to us. We don't necessarily want to blind MST here, so we're just going to set 4, pass back to them. Unfortunately, they missed input, so they didn't flip up the ring. They flipped up Phoenix Wing, and they're going to target our Solemn, which is kind of rough. We kind of wanted the Solemn around to do stuff with, because, I mean, all of this would have gone back to our top, so it would be draw locking us no matter what here. But Solemn does insulate us against some other potential plays that could be a bit bad for us. So opponent's going to banish a Mally, go into a Mally here, and that's a bit rough, but it's not a 2-turn clock. That's what we really care about, and unfortunately, they're going to meta into a Sentry, and now this will potentially be a 2-turn clock. Luckily, they're not going to banish a third Mally. They don't have the third Mally in hand either, so it could just be that they're playing a bit cautiously, or it could be that they sided out one of the Mallies because they didn't want to draw into multiple like they did last game. But either way, we are thankful for that. I mean, I guess they've got the ring, so it doesn't really matter here. They can just ring one of their monsters, and that's basically a 2-turn clock. But Solemn can stop the ring, so we have a slight chance here. Not a very good one, but they're going to attack in for 18 and then 2,000. And Sentry can only negate normal traps, so we actually can use the Solemn to stop that ring. And it's not looking good for us, but, potentially if we draw into a 6-am, we can, bring out Grandmaster, get that online, and do stuff, but it's not looking good. We go for MST on the new back row just in case, and we draw into a ring, which is really not going to help us here, and so that'll just be the end of the game. So kind of unfortunate there, but, that does occasionally happen in this deck. I think also, siding in the pullings was a bit of a bad move on our part. This game we can side in the pullings because we're going first, so it's a bit better there, but I think the pullings would have been better if they were almost anything else. But anyways, we got a pretty good start here. We're going to go for the reasoning because we don't have Sidereign in hand to clog things up. And I want to sort of get my 6 Sam set up. We got Solemn and Mirror Force, so I'm not too afraid of what they can do against an established board here. So they call 4, and they're going to hit a Grandmaster. I mean, oh, so good getting Grandmaster out of the deck. The last time we played 6 Sams, we had a major problem in getting the Grandmaster out. And, you know, this deck really does solve a lot of the issues with reasoning. You don't always hit a Grandmaster, but you get deeper in your deck and make it more likely that you'll draw into the Grandmaster eventually. So we're going to back up this board with a Solomon and Mirror Force. I feel very good about this. And they're just going to bring out a Stratos here. And we are going to let that go through. We could have potentially Solemned the Stratos. I did debate it because Stratos is very good for their deck. But I think, like, given that we can beat over Stratos next turn with the Grandmaster, I don't think we need to do that. We also have Mirror Force to stop the Stratos if we want to use it there. They're going to try attacking into the Yaichi. I want the Yaichi around to pop their back row, so I am just going to Mirror Force that Stratos. They're going to set 1, pass back to us, and now we can Yaichi that back row. So that's what we're going to do. Go for the Yaichi there. They've got MST for our Solemn. I mean, makes sense. They wouldn't set into no Yaichi, a thing that actually did something, but either way, this does clear that. So we don't get to attack in with the Yaichi here because it did still activate its effect, so that was a mistake on my part. I'm still learning the deck a bit, but we do get to attack in for 3,900 and we'll pass back to our opponent. They're going to think about this a bit, and they're going to activate a pre-mat here. So they're going to pay 8 and bring back that Stratos, and Stratos will be able to get another search, unfortunately for us. But Dasher is, I mean, Dasher's a bit awkward here for us. Potentially what they could do is just summon a Dasher, crash into the Grandmaster by battle. But then we do get in for, like, you know, 13 plus 18, and then we got Rhoda as well. So I'm not too afraid of that happening. But it looks like they're going to go for Jinzo instead, and Jinzo will be able to potentially clear the Grandmaster if they want to. They're going to go for the Zanji instead, because Zanji's effect only activates when it attacks, not when it is attacked. So, you know, it's a bit awkward for us here, because now we have to decide, okay, do we keep around the Zanji, or do we, you know, let it go and potentially have to Rhoda for Zanji next turn? I decided just to keep around the Zanji, just so that way they know the threat's there. Jinzo does mean that their back row isn't going to do anything, so if I do want to sort of go for a different 6 Sam as well to sort of press my offensive here when I do that next turn, I can do that instead. But they're going to go for a set back row, so I do think it is just best to search out a Yaichi here and summon that out, try and pop their back row, and then just attack in with Zanji, popping the Yaichi to keep the Zanji on field, and then also destroying the Jinzo with that. So now we can attack in for 2,100 with the Grandmaster as well, and pass back to them. They are just going to, what are they going to do? Go for Rhoda here, and seeing their deck, they're just going to admit defeat, because they did not have anything to deal with this. Yeah, Meta, Pot, Disc Commander, and Dasher, but not quite going to do it. We do have enough firepower here to actually get through. I mean, they could have set a bluff here, and maybe I would have changed my you know, attack order or something like that, but realistically, like, we're going for damage here if we can. So, yeah, I mean, this was going to be the end of the game, because, like, there's no real point to playing around Mirror Force at this point, because if they Mirror Force, we got Sidra, and we get back something with Grandmaster too, so, like, yeah, we're just winning the game basically 10 ways to Sunday here. So that's going to do it for the meta match here, and I think that does show the power of 6 Sams. I mean, we did have a bad showing in game 2, but the rest of this was pretty good, and I'm really, really digging this deck. Next up, we got a game against Pobril, another frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to dive into the game. And this is going to be a bit more of a jank matchup, but jank matchups are fun to show off, you know. So we actually open a pretty good hand here. We're just going to go for reasoning, because we do have pre-mat to bring back something in case, you know, we mill something good. And also, they don't know what we're playing yet, so we can go for reasoning here. Maybe they'll call 8 or something, and then we get a free monster on field. So they're going to call 6 here, and we're going to hit a Come On. Come On is not the best of the monster that we could have here, but, you know, it's 1,500 attack. That isn't terrible, and it gets it in rotation here. We're just going to bring out a Grandmaster as well, and then summon out an Iroh and set a return pass back to them. I don't think they're on Lightning Vortex. If they're on Lightning Vortex in the main, we get a bit owned, but we can use Grandmaster to add back something. We got pre-mat to bring back another thing, and we got return to bring back another thing. So if they do have just opening Lightning Vortex, then, you know, we are somewhat insulated. But it is just a bit awkward if they do have that. They're going to go for a Sidra here, and then upstart, so that way we draw a card. They're going to set 2 and just attack into the Grandmaster. That makes sense to me, because this way it will not get its effect off. We do have pre-mat to bring back the Grandmaster, though, so that's pretty good. We can go for a Yaichi here, just to try and pop one in the back row first. We're going to try popping that one. They're going to Chainlink 2, send back the Iroh with a Compulse, and then we're going to pre-mat back that Grandmaster to try and get in for some damage here. We're attacking for 15 and then 21, but they've got a Mirror Force here to blow up the entire board. We can use Grandmaster, though, to get back a Grandmaster. I mean, it is so good. The fact that it gets back itself is so, so good. We're going to set a Solemn here, pass back to them. and see what they do. They're just going to set one, pass back to us, and I mean, that's perfectly fine because we get this Iroh here. We draw into another Grandmaster, which is kind of rough. You can only control one at a time. But if they somehow manage to clear other Grandmaster, maybe there's something that we can do there. But we're just going to Iroh attack it in the set. It was a Hane, so, you know, that definitely shows that this deck is a bit more jank than the previous deck we faced off against. They're going to set two, pass back to us. And we got to think about this in end phase. We're actually going to go for return here to grab back Yaichi. And you might be wondering why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to play around TT here, because what we can do is that Yaichi in end phase can pop the Grandmaster to replace itself in terms of the return destruction effect, and then we get another Grandmaster in hand to bring out next turn. So I figure this is ultimately better than, you know, trying to return next turn and then running into a TT. Yes, we do get something back with Grandmaster, but I think that this is ultimately the better way to go. Maybe it was a bit greedy on my part, though, or just a bit awkward. I tried popping that backwards to Threatening Roar, so unfortunately we won't be able to do anything there. We could have solemned the Threatening Roar, honestly, but I don't think it's that good because we're just getting in for 2100 damage here, so I think I can wait a turn. I set a Solemn, pass back to them, and see what they do. They're going to set one, activate Swords. Here I could definitely Solemn. I think there is an argument to Solemning the Swords, because Swords does slow down our game plan quite a bit, and we just kind of want to get aggressive here. But I do think that, like, I want to save Solemn for the things that actually, like, help them get back in this game. We're in a very, very good spot. Any game where you got Grandmaster set up and some 6 Sams Engrave is pretty good for us. And if we do draw a way to get back the command, like, for instance, if we draw into another return, or if we draw into Call the Haunted or something like that, then we can command pop the Swords and be fine with that. So I'm feeling pretty good about this overall. We draw TT, we set that. That's a misplay on my part. Should have held the TT in hand because I don't want to TT this board right now. And also, if I draw into Feeding Swing, it's better to have the TT in hand for Feeding Swing there. But I pass back to them. They're going to set one, pass back to us, and we draw into Xian. That's pretty neat. We're going to go for Yaichi, try and target that back row. They're going to compulse back the Iroh. Doesn't really matter here. We can just normal summon it back. And then we go for Xian to cut them off of activating more stuff once per turn. So they're going to go for True Nade here, and honestly with Xian, that's fine because they can't activate any more spell or traps with this up. We remind them of that fact, and they do have a way to deal with that. They're going to Hane that Xian back to hand and then go for Swords, but I mean, we are fine with that because we can just bring back the Xian next turn. So we're going to go for Yaichi, try and pop that set. It's a Threatening Roar, so they're going to go for that. We just bring out Xian, set these Solemns, pass back to them again. This time I've learned my lesson. I've been given a chance to keep this in hand, so I will keep it in hand. We could have committed the Yaichi as well if we wanted to, but I don't want to necessarily commit it if we get a way to get back Come On, or just a better monster here to do stuff with. They're going to flip up a Sangan here, try to attack into the Yaichi. That's perfectly fine. They'll take 300 from that. And, you know, they do get a search here. I'm not really sure what they can search to really get out of this situation. They search Exiled. I mean, that's fine. You know, they're going to go for the Exiled, and they're going to target the Xian. I think here I make another misplay. I think what I should have done is I just should have Xian popped either the Yaichi or the Iroh. I think probably the Yaichi would have been the better choice because I've got another Yaichi in hand. And if they really do have a TT here, which is the only thing that punches this play, then I can Solemn the TT. But I'm like, well, you know, I think we're in a fine spot. We've got this way to just pop their back row before committing anything to the board. And I do have other Xians in deck, so I can just let this go through. They're down to 1 card in hand anyway, so it's not like they're going to be activating more than 1 spell or trap a turn. It's just mainly here for damage at this point. So I just let that go through. But I probably should have just, you know, popped the Aichi. They're going to Tribute Set here and pass back to us, but we can use Return to bring back Come On, and then Come On to pop the Swords. And so we're feeling pretty good here overall because we just pop that, and that will go through. And now I don't think we have lethal here yet. So we have 13 plus 13, so that's 20, so that's 4,700 damage if we attack into the set with Iroh, which we will likely do. But we do have Ring after that to then, you know, finish off the game. We got Solemn to allow our Ring to just go through. So there was some math issue here with just attacking in. They do have a Sakuretsu armor there that would not have helped in the slightest here. And so, yeah, we would have won this game no matter what. Because the card that they drew, we could just Solemn that if it was like a book or something. So, yeah, that'll just be the end of the game. So, yep, we're going to go on to the next game here. Diving into game 2. And I don't side anything here because, well, actually, I do think I side in a Come On. I think I side out 1 Yaichi and put in 1 Come On. I think that's what I do. Very, very minor side decking thing. I just do it because, you know, they've got Swords of Veiling Light. They could have Degenerate Circuit, which is something that, you know, decks that try to bounce things in hand might want to play. So I figure it's better to have more Come Ons to deal with that sort of stuff than not. We go for Sidra, but in standby phase, they do have the Dust Shoot here, so they're able to shuffle back the Iroh, which I do think makes sense because we do have a reasoning to potentially get into another 6 Sam here, so it makes sense to just go for the Iroh to prevent that from being turned on. So we're just going to set 3 and then attack into the set. If it's Morphing Jar, that's why we do this. If it's Morphing Jar, we lose the reasoning. That's kind of unfortunate, but we don't necessarily want to do a reasoning play right now because it's generally better if we have a 6-Sam to pair with the reasoning. We're going to attack into the set, though, and it's going to be a giant rat. They're going to bring out a Guardian statue here. And honestly, we're fine with that. This can bounce back the Sidra. The only real, negative to this is if they've got Degenerate Circuit. If they've got Degenerate Circuit, then things are a bit rough because they'd be able to banish the Sidra as opposed to just bouncing into hand. But if all they can do is bounce to hand, then we're fine with that. They MST the Solemn. That's going to be a bit rough as well. They bring out another Guardian statue, flip down the first one, and then bounce back that Sidra to hand, then attack in for 1,600 here. I mean, that's perfectly fine. We'll take that 1,600. We were at 9,000, so we can afford it. They will flip down the Guardian statue that had not used up its effect yet, and then pass back to us. We're going to go for Sidra here before we activate the reasoning. See if that's fine. That will be fine from them. We go for a reasoning now, and that's going to be fine as well. They go for 4, and we hit Shien. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to hit Shien now that they're down to 1 Spell or Trap a turn. We're just going to summon out Come On here as well. If they've got Mirror Force, they've got Mirror Force. I mean, it is what it is, you know. But I'm not necessarily going to play around it at this point. And I've got Mirror Force and Ring of my own, so I should be able to claw my way back into this if they do have the Mirror Force. It just would be very unfortunate if they had it. Actually, interesting. I decide not to attack here because I'm like, well, they got the Mirror Force, then that's bad. But next turn, I could potentially switch the command to defense, and then I could pop it for the Shien if they do have Mirror Force. So I guess I decided not to attack, but they've got Compulse for the Shien, so they're able to bounce that back to hand. And they can bounce our whole board here. I don't really care about that because, you know, we've got Sidra. So I don't care if they bounce Sidra. I can just keep bringing out the Sidra again. They go for Exile and Come On instead, though, which I do think makes sense because if we draw into Grandmaster, then we go Come On into Grandmaster and Shien, and that's a lot of damage on board. So I think it makes sense to pop it instead of just returning to hand here, and they're going to attack in for 1,600. They're then going to flip down both their Guardian statues, and I'm perfectly fine with that. We draw into Yaichi here. We're going to special summon out this Sidra, and then we're just going to attack into one of the sets. We could have committed Yaichi as well. I don't really feel the need to because we don't have another 6-Sam, so there's not really a point to doing that in my opinion. They go for Saku on our Sidra here, and now that they've used up their back row, I'm fine just summoning out Yaichi, and then I'll just pass back to them. I think this was also a misplay because they're just going to bounce this back with the Guardian statue, so this just reveals information that I don't have to, but, you know, I wasn't necessarily thinking the most cogently in the moment. I was just sort of vibing, playing against a pretty jank deck, and enjoying this 3-for-1 on the Mirror Force there. I believe they didn't know about the Mirror Force from earlier, but they might have forgotten by that point. And we draw into Grandmaster, so, I mean, this is about as good as it gets. I go for Yaichi, special Grandmaster, summon out Shien, and then I just attack in for a ton of damage. And then we got Ring to finish off the game. So, yeah, I mean, this is just a very, very explosive turn. Even if they had played around Mirror Force here, I'd still be able to, like, beat into the Guardian statues that they left alive. So, you know, this would have been very, very fine. We just wouldn't have won this turn. But realistically, I mean, all they had Nam was a saying in. I don't think that would have helped them that much. And we get Ring to finish off the game by popping this Grandmaster. So that's just going to be the end of the game there. So the deck showing that it can definitely take down a bit of a jank deck here. Okay, for our last game, we got another jank deck here. This time piloted by Jim Bob, who piloted the meta deck in the beginning here. They saw what Purbro was doing and was inspired as well to try their hand at that style of deck. So we'll have to see how it works out for them. This is a very, very good hand for us. Any hand where you have access to Grandmaster is a great hand. So we're just going to summon an Iroh, go for Grandmaster, and then we're going to set a Ring pass back to them. We can save our reasoning for next turn. We've also got Premat to bring these back if they manage to clear them. And Ring should protect them from a variety of threats. So I feel very good there. They're going to go for Exiled, pop the Grandmaster. I mean, that is fine. That is absolutely fine by us. We get back the Grandmaster, and we're feeling very good. But they go for banishing that Exiled for a Gigantes, so that explains why they did this. Because now the Gigantes will potentially be able to hit over the Iroh, or at least it would if we didn't have this Ring. So Ring will beat down the Gigantes. Now we can bring out the Grandmaster on the following turn if they don't have a way to stop it. So in standby phase, they do have a way to stop it. They can go for a Ring of their own, popping the Iroh. And that means that we won't be able to pull out our Grandmaster here. But we do have reasoning, so we might be able to do it anyways. They call 4, which is, I mean, it worked out for them there. Funnily enough, if they didn't call 4 or, you know, they called something else, or I guess if we had hit something else, I think we would have been able to win the game here because we got 3,800 damage from Grandmaster plus Premat on Iroh. So, you know, I think we were winning this game if that reasoning call had been correct. Either way, though, I think it is just worth going for Premat for the Zanji and then special summoning out the Grandmaster. I could have gone for Iroh instead, but I do think that, you know, we got return, so we can just return back the Iroh if we really need it. And this does a little bit more damage, so I think it's fine. So they're going to banish a Gigantes, summon out a Gigantes, and then attack into our Zanji. This is a bit awkward here. I do decide to just let this go through and then pop the Grandmaster. It's a bit awkward, though, because the Zanji will then not trigger its effect because it didn't attack. So, we're just keeping this around here. But I think if I draw into another 6-Am, then I can return back something and then go for that. I also can just return back the Grandmaster attack over the Gigantes and get it that way. So, I think that we're feeling pretty fine here. They set one, though, so we got to sort of play around this a bit interestingly. We go for a return here. Or actually, we summon the Iroh first, I guess, and then we use return later. I think there's a way, so if I go for Iroh here, then return back the Grandmaster and then Heavy Storm, I can then use Zanji to pop. Now, it wouldn't quite work out, so I do think I have to do this. If they've got, like, Mirror Force, they got Mirror Force. It is what it is. But I think it's ultimately fine. We're just going to attack in to the rat with the Iroh, which will destroy the rat without bringing out another thing. We go for a turn here, bring back the Grandmaster. And now we'll just Grandmaster attack over the Gigantes. This is a bit awkward because Gigantes will destroy the Premat, but the Zanji will be able to replace its destruction by destroying a different 6 Samurai we control. So, it's ultimately fine because we do indeed win that and are able to do that. So we're going to go into game 2 here. Yeah, game 2. It's easy to miss track of which game is which, but this is indeed game 2. I don't really side anything in for this match. This time I don't bring in the commands, I don't think, because, it seems like more of an Earth aggro build than like a Generate Circuit build. So, I feel like Command is a bit worse than that style of deck. But they go for Conf here, rip out a ring, and then set 2 pass back to us. And we draw Reasoning, so that's very good. They do have the Dust Shoot for the Zanji, though, so that is a bit awkward. We ultimately just decide to set a Mirror Force pass back to them. I don't want to do the Reasoning until I draw into a 6-Am, because again, if I just hit a blind 6-Am, then that can be a bit bad for us. They're going to flip up a Rat here, attack in for 14. And we are going to ultimately Mirror Force that, because Rat's just annoying to deal with. I could have saved the Mirror Force here. This does turn on the Gigantes, which was a bit awkward. But I think it is worth just getting rid of the Rat, because I can't go aggro with that Rat on field. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw into an Iroh. I think I actually misplayed here. I should have just, MSC'd in the draw phase in case it was Dust Shoot. If I used draw phase priority, they wouldn't have been able to Dust Shoot here. But I go for MSD now, and I hit a call. And now I go for Reasoning. And they call 4, which is incorrect. So they hit a Grandmaster, and now we're able to summon out an Iroh and get in for a fair bit of damage. It's going to be 3,800. We got a Brain Con as well to stack with it. So I'm feeling very, very good about this. I'm not sure how I lose the game from this position. Unfortunately for us, they do have a way. They're going to go for Rhoda for Exile here, and then they're going to Lightning Vortex. That is a very, very good card to sort of deal with this. We can still get back the Grandmaster, though, so that's pretty nice. And with the Brain Con in hand, we can Brain Con one of their monsters, tribute over it for Grandmaster, and get in that way. So that's part of why I did this. If we draw into a 6-Am, we don't necessarily need to do that, because we can just go, 6-Am, then into Grandmaster, then Brain Con for damage. But either way, it should be fine. They set 1 pass back to us. We draw Shien, which isn't the best, but we can still Brain Con here and try and take control of that Gigantes. They do have Compulse, though. Compulse will be able to bounce back the Gigantes. They can bring that out against next turn, and now things are looking a bit more troublesome for us, because we can't really do anything with this hand. And this is one of the risks of the deck. You are playing things like Shien, which if you don't have the 6-Ams online and you just draw it, it is pretty bad. So we do sort of run afoul of that. They bring out Golem Sentry here. Attack him for 2,700, because this is a 2-turn clock, and they can flip down that sentry as well. Sure, if we get a 6-Am, we can attack over it, but we do not draw into a 6-Am, we just draw into a Solemn Judgment. We'll set it a bluff. Maybe they sort of respect Mirror Force or something. Actually, no, we used Mirror Force earlier, so they're not going to respect that. Maybe they'll respect TT. I don't know. Looks like they will not, though, and for good reason. I think at this point, if we got TT, we got TT. And anyways, I guess they had Book, so it wasn't the best sort of thing there, but if they give us enough time, they know we got Grandmaster, we can just do stuff. So it is better for them to just attack in while they can. And they do indeed manage to take that deck, or that game, not deck. I assume they've got their deck just on hand. So they don't need to take it anywhere. But we're going to dive into game 3 here. Again, I don't really switch up the sideboarding plan, because I feel like our deck can just beat this deck just natively. And I don't really have any targeted tools to beat this deck. I guess maybe Transfiguration Prophecy to shuffle back some Earth from Grave, but I'm not too afraid of Gigantes. We go for Reasoning here because we get Grandmaster and Shogun, so if we hit a 6-Am there, we can just go Grandmaster, Shogun, and just set that up right away. But unfortunately, we do not hit that. We'll just set a Solemn and an MST. I think I could have set Return here, because, this way we'd be insulated against Dust Shoot, and if they activate Heavy, I do have Solemn for that. But I think if they activate heavy, like, I don't really care about this back row enough, so I'm fine just letting it go and not losing half my life points, and then setting up return for the later. So I think that's why I did it, but I think I could have definitely just set the return as well. Unfortunately, they got Comfy here, so they're able to take the Shien, which is not a 6 Samurai, so it will not count for the return. So that's kind of rough there. But they did take 1,000 to do that, so that's kind of nice for us. They're going to set 4, pass back to us. We draw Rhoda here, so we can actually go for Iroh and do stuff with that. So we're going to search out that Iroh, and then we're going to, summon that Iroh, bring out the Grandmaster if they let it go through, and they will indeed let it go through. And now we can attack into their sets. They've got Mirror Force for that, but I do think now is the time to Solemn. Yes, if they Mirror Force, we can use Grandmaster to get back Grandmaster, and we get Return to bring back Iroh in the following turn. But, if I'm not Solemning on a 3-for-1 trade, when am I Solemning, So I do think that Solemn is right here. If they've got to Solemn their own, that's unfortunate for us. But again, we do get back Grandmaster. We do have return set up. So it is pretty fine, I think. But in the battle step after the Mirror Force activation, they are going to use Compulse to bounce back the Iroh. And because they do want to keep that set monster around, I think what I'm ultimately going to do is I'm not going to attack into it. I'm just going to MST their back row in case it's an MST or Dust Tornado of their own. We had a Threatening Roar, which is very nice because it doesn't really do anything here. And then main 2, we're going to set the return, pass back to them. I set the return here because I do think it can set up some interesting OTK lines potentially. And I don't think they've got a heavy unless they top deck it. Because, they set 3, right? They could top deck MSC as well, and that'd be a bit unfortunate. But I think either way, it should be fine here. They go for Rhoda, and they're going to search out a DD Warrior. DD Warrior will be able to deal with our Grandmaster, unfortunately, but they do take 900 damage from that, so we're not too upset about that. So they'll take the 900 and then main 2, set 1, pass back to us. We draw into another return. So, not really doing anything for us right now, but we can summon out this Iroh, set a return, pass back to them. So this does give us 2 potential options for a 6 Sam here. We draw into another Iroh, which unfortunately will not really help us here because, they have to have 2 6 Sams with different names. So we can't use the Iroh effect with just another Iroh on field. We'll just bring it out anyways and pass back to them. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Yaichi, so now we can do stuff here. We're going to Yaichi one of their back row, and we hit into the Threatening Roar, unfortunately. Well, I mean, this is still a fine board to be on. If they attack over the Yaichi, we can pop an Iroh instead, and that's pretty fine. We can also just let it go and then return it back at some point, so we feel fine about that. They're going to flip up a Giant Rat attack into our Yaichi here, and we are just going to let that go through. But we are going to pop the Iroh there. Because, again, we do have a way to get back Iroh, and this keeps Yaichi on field. They're going to flip up a Rat here, and then summon out a Grand Mole and attack, activate a Degenerate Circuit. So they are playing the Degenerate Circuit here. But actually, we could potentially use this to our own advantage here. They're going to pass back to us. We draw Swords, which is very good, because we can sort of wall off their major attacks with the Mole and stuff like that. So I feel pretty good about this overall. We're going to attack into the Rat. They're going to bring out another Rat. And then we're going to attack into that Rat, see what they bring out here. If they bring out like a DD Warrior, we could potentially attack over it with the Yaichi if we want to. And they do need to bring over the DD Warrior. However, I don't actually want to attack him with the Yaichi because that does lose us a name. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go for return to bring back the duplicate Iroh in our grave. And then instead of actually attacking into the Warrior, we're actually going to attack into the Mole just to clear it. I think, honestly, we could have just attacked in to the Warrior to deal a bit more damage because the Mole will bounce before damage step is reached. But I do respect just like getting the Mole off the field because it is kind of annoying. And we're just going to go for a Swords here, pass back to them. They will pay 500 for the Degenerate Circuit because this card is too powerful without the 500 life point restriction. They're going to switch their monster defense, pass back to us. We draw into Zanji, which is very good. This does deal with Rats, so we can attack into that there. Pop that, then attack into the Warrior with the Yaichi. They've used up Mirror Force already, so I'm not too afraid of whatever other back row they might have. And then we'll attack in for 3,800 here, and that will all go through. A Degenerate Circuit will cost them 500 life points here in standby. And do they have anything here to do? Unfortunately, they do not. They just have an Exiled Force and a Golden Sentry, neither of which will actually help them here. So that's going to do it for the games. I really like this deck. I think it's very, very cool. Thank you to all the commenters recommending suggestions for how to improve it, and also recommending to look at John Moore's list, because John Moore's list was very, very good. And I think that this is probably, it might even be my favorite deck in Demise format. It's just so fun. I think it is a little bit better in Demise format than it will be in Trooper format, because once Ryza is introduced, Ryza spinning back your 6 Ams is a bit worse for you than, just summing out like Zaborg, for instance, in a Monarch deck and popping them, right? Because that gives you a little bit more flexibility in what you can do. But that's going to do it for the video. Let me know what you think about 6 Sams down in the comments below. If you want to play games in Demise format or any other format that I featured on the channel, head over to the YGO from Zero Discord server. And also, if you like this sort of content, subscribe. we're going to be heading into Trooper format very soon. This was, I think, the last Demise format video I'll be doing for my regular coverage, unless you can think of another deck that I should feature. Let me know in the comments below if you do have one that I should feature. But as is, my current plan is that this will be the last Demise video. Also, if you want to support me directly, I do have a Patreon, linked in the description down below. And if you join the Patreon, get a shout out in these videos. So big shout outs to Brent Donker, GMYFS, Tyler Compton, Rinswin, Porkchop Coon, Dump Truck, and Scout Zero. It means a lot that you all support me this way and encourage me to make more videos like this in the future. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.